as we go into the summer months, there's the issue around supply disruptions. What is the hurricane season going to be, and what is that going to mean, not only to fulfilling storage requirements, but meeting flowing gas requirements during the winter heating season? This is a picture, quick picture, of what has happened on the supply side of the market for '08. The total supply has been running at about 62, 63 billion cubic feet per day. The difference between '08 and '07 has been that more of that has been domestic. We've seen a little bit less from Canada, significantly less in LNG, but more natural gas coming from domestic producers. From January of '07 to '08, we saw about a 6% increase in national domestic production here in the United States, and we were on about the same path again in '08. Of course, the hurricanes influenced that a little bit, but still the domestic production picture is very solid. Demand, on the other hand, is very volatile and seasonal, of course. In this case, the green shows the natural gas demand for home heating customers. You can see the peak in January and February. Those are the peak periods of demand for residential and small commercial customers, our core customers. Industrial consumption in blue, which tends to be relatively steady, and now a new player in the natural gas market, if you will. The red represents the amount of natural gas going to power generation. And if you can't see it in that graphic, you can certainly see it here. There's a new peak for natural gas consumption in the country. I'll go back to this slide. The traditional winter heating season peak is shown in green there. It tends to last from November through March. Today, we have a peak for natural gas consumption in the summer also, and it's going to power generation at the very time the local gas utilities are trying to put natural gas in storage. So there's competition for the gas. It's had profound pricing impacts on the market. But this is very real, and it is something that must be considered when you're trying to understand the natural gas market today. I'm going to close very quickly with some comments on the longer view for natural gas supply in the country. And clearly, this view for supply this year is very positive. This is a graphic from the American Clean Skies Foundation. It goes back to a report that was published earlier this summer regarding the role or the potential role for shales to provide more natural gas here in the United States to consumers. One of the interesting things about this graphic, of course, is that these are the shale basins that were referenced in the study overlaying over our current pipeline system. The American Clean Skies Foundation pointed out that there are no heroic assumptions or efforts that need to be made with regard to getting the gas to market with respect to our infrastructure. The infrastructure, for the most part, is generally there. It's the technology that has been applied to make recovering this gas possible, and this is one of the main reasons we have seen the upticks in natural gas supply around the country. And most analysts believe it's going to continue. In fact, the numbers that you see associated with it can be quite extraordinary. Today, something around 5 billion cubic feet per day of natural gas comes from domestic shale sources. That's in a total market of gas production that's something north of 50 billion cubic feet per day. The American Clean Skies report and other analysts have pointed to the fact that actually shale may sometime in the future, 10 or 15 years in the future, be accounting for significantly more, 27 to 35 billion cubic feet per day, a significant portion of our productive market. That's possible. It's just an estimate. But the point is that from where we are today to where we may go in the future, for natural gas in this country, a domestic onshore resource is developing that could be a very, very positive thing in the future. We also know we've increased our import capacity to vaporize liquefied natural gas from international imports. What was about 5.2 billion cubic feet per day of capacity 2 years ago is now over 10 billion cubic feet per day. It's actually doubled. Now, it's not being currently used at that capacity, only at about 10% of that level right now. But the possibilities are there. And, of course, there is the pipeline from Alaska. That has moved forward. Certainly the political campaign this year, Governor Palin has pointed to developments around the Arctic natural gas pipeline, moving gas to the lower 48 states. And it's exciting to hear the discussion because it's been talked about for 30 years. Now, whether it actually gets built and put in the ground, we'll see, but at least the discussions are there. Those are my remarks very quickly. I know we'll have an opportunity for some questions later. I believe Mark is going to come up and talk about the LIHEAP issues. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Mark Wolf. I'm the Executive Director of the National Energy Assistance Directors Association. I represent all the state directors of the Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program, or LIHEAP. LIHEAP is the only federal program to help families pay their heating and cooling bills. It targets the poorest 25% of the families in the United States, or basically families making at most about $33,000 a year. This coming winter, as in past winters, we're again very concerned about affordability of home energy. We're estimating it'll be about $1,113 this winter, up from about $986 last year, or about close to 13% more than last year. And that's partly driven by somewhat higher natural gas prices, but much, much higher heating oil prices this coming winter. For families using heating oil, and that's the one that I think is getting the most press attention, even with lower prices, we're looking at close to $2,400 to heat a home, and with natural gas, about $1,000 to heat a home. And just to put it in context, a single person receiving Social Security gets about $1,027 a month. So you see very quickly how energy is becoming unaffordable. 6 or 7 years ago, it was only about $600 on average to heat a home. So many families that could afford the cost of home heating, even 3 or 4 years ago, no longer can. One thing that I think makes a big difference, though, and didn't get much press attention, was that in the continuing resolution, Congress increased the funding level for LIHEAP to $5.1 billion starting for fiscal year 09. That's up from $2.57 billion last year, almost doubling the total amount of money available for LIHEAP. The increase is so significant, it's more than the total funding for LIHEAP in most years since it was enacted about 25 years ago. What is an extra $2.5 billion, or what does $5.1 billion mean? For example, for Illinois, increases the total funding from $114 million to $237 million. Massachusetts, $82 million to $163 million. South Carolina, $14 million to $47 million. There's a chart that is in your packets that show this. The states right now are talking about, is this enough money? You know, we've never had this much money for energy assistance. We've talked about this. It was one of our requests to increase funding to $5.1 billion. Well, this is what it does in a practical sense. It allows states to raise the average cost of payment for home heating from 36% last year to close to 50% this year. It allows us to increase the number served from 5.8 million to 7.8 million, an increase of 2 million households. That starts to get us in the range of food stamps. Food stamps serves about 12 million households. Congress also allowed us to increase the income level for families covered under LIHEAP from 60% of state median income to 75% of state median income. That basically starts taking you well into working class families. And generally, we don't see a lot of working class families coming in for energy assistance. But what it is for those families who are having problems with high health care costs, or maybe they've lost a job, it allows them to receive help paying their energy bill as well. So it basically broadens the base of families that can get energy assistance, broadens the total number of families that can